go. All right, there you go. Now, can you believe that some people today do not think that they need internet to be successful? The internet is implemented into almost everything today, and you need the internet if you want to become successful, or you're going to have to work twice as hard or just find alternate routes, which is very impractical. Now, there's three main reasons as to why the internet is needed for today so you can be successful. The first reason is for education. You know, in schools, 98% of schools today require some kind of internet use or have the internet in their curriculum. According to Education Superhighway, 98% of students these days use the internet because they need to within their schooling. Now, if you don't have the internet, or if you choose not to use it, then you're in a problem because, you know, projects and homework and all that are going to be so much harder. You're going to have to find your research elsewhere. And on top of that, you're going to need to, you know, find schools that don't require this internet usage, which is extremely limited, only 2% of all schools. So you have to do this, you have to find colleges, and getting to your dream college is going to be that much harder, and, you know, passing these classes is going to make it that much more difficult for yourself if you just don't utilize the internet. The second main reason that I believe that people need internet is for work. Now, work is extremely important in this situation because the internet is used in various different ways to be professional. Now, let's say you're talking to your employer or something like that, and you need to communicate with him, you use the internet. You know, if you need to find jobs online, you use the internet. There's many ways that you can use the internet in these jobs, and according to NBC, 90% of jobs today are like somewhat using the internet. Now, even low-income jobs and low-skilled jobs are starting to implement the internet within their usage. So finding a job that doesn't use the internet or just plain out, you know, doesn't need the internet at all is extremely hard. And on top of that, the jobs that don't use the internet are most likely low paying, which means that you're going to be in tons of financial trouble when, you know, having a job and trying to sustain yourself or trying to sustain your family. And the third main reason as to why I believe that people need the internet to be successful in today's society is because of communication. Communication, I'd say, is probably one of the biggest factors just because the whole entire world is connected with the internet. You use, you know, emails and stuff like that to be extremely, you know, professional with your employer or with maybe a coworker or something like that, because texting and calling and all that is not seen as professional as an email. And emailing is also the #1 way of communicating with people around the world today. Now, there's the three main rebuttals that people come up with when talking about the internet is that some schools do not require the internet through usage. And though this may be true, like I said before, most schools are going to need you to use the internet. And if you're not equipped to use the internet, you don't know how to, or you just don't plain out want to, then you're going to be at a major disadvantage. You're going to have to find select schools that don't use the internet. You're going to have to find select colleges that don't use the internet. You're going to have to find all your information from an outside source, and all that is just plain out impractical when you can just do a quick Google search for something you're looking the answer for. Second main rebuttal that people like to try and combat this with is some jobs don't require the internet usage. And that's very obvious, some don't. But like I said before, some jobs that don't use internet are extremely low-income jobs because now even low-skilled jobs nowadays are starting to use the internet. So if you don't use the internet, or if you just don't get how to use the internet, then you're going to be at a major disadvantage when finding jobs, when looking for people that are hiring for jobs, stuff like that. And you're going to be in tons of financial trouble, and the financial trouble leads to even more situations and more problems with your family or with yourself. And the third main reason as to why people try to combat why you need the internet in today's society is that, you know, people can communicate through text, call, or letters. And yeah, this may be true, but texting is extremely unprofessional. Like, when you text somebody, you usually don't text an employer. You usually don't text, you know, somebody that you look up to, like your boss. You usually text your friends or your family or something like that, because it's not professional. So it's not going to get you success, because you're not going to find an employer that's going to want you to text your resume or something like that. And the second thing, call. Call could be a little more professional, but the issue with that is that when you call someone, you don't know what they're doing at the time. You know, you could be intruding on their life. It could be a bad time for them. You could catch them at a bad time. When rather with email, you email them and they go and look back at it whenever they want to, you know, when they're in a work setting, rather than calling them on their own time. And the third thing is letters. I'd say letters is almost as professional and almost as formal as an email, but the only problem is the time that it takes for the letter to get from you to your desired destination. You know, you send a letter out to an employer, oh, I want this job, you know, here's my resume, stuff like that. You know, he gets the letter, he reads it, but it's a week late, and they've already hired somebody for the position. So now you're screwed because circumstances changed within the time frame between the send and the receive of the letter. Also, sending letters is expensive. You know, you have to buy envelopes, you have to use paper, you have to use ink, you have to buy stamps, you have to ship the letter. All these add up over time. All these extra financial, you know, obligations add up over time. And when you're working a low-income job because you don't know how to use the internet, all these financial obligations are going to build up on you, and you're going to have even more problems and more issues. So these lead to tons of issues, which is just completely impractical and can be solved with just quick internet usage. Now, to make the internet a little more relevant, or to fix this issue, I guess you can say you could make the internet a little more relevant or user-friendly, but really there's no way around this. You either use the internet and be successful, or you don't. And though some people think that they can become successful without using the internet, they'll always be overshadowed by people that don't, because when you use the internet, you reach out to so many more people. But when you're, you know, just trying to do things the old school way, it's just not going to work nowadays, because people have such a gigantic advantage over you that you're not going to be as successful as you would be if you were using the internet. Now, to conclude everything, so do you believe that people can still use the internet and be successful? Can you imagine how much harder it is for the life of those people that don't use the internet? Can you imagine how much harder it is for them to graduate school, for them to find jobs, for them to communicate with their loved ones? It's going to be that much harder for you to keep a professional or personal relationship with somebody else, just because of that lack of internet usage. And this leads to less success and lower income and all types of issues, which can lead to ultimately, you know, you not being successful. And that's really it.